the thing I'd like to do today is first say thank you for who you are. We're at a time where coaches are more important than ever before. And you talk about leadership, we touch more lives than most people um, in a month, and most people do in a year of their life. And we're coming off of COVID, where some people lost their lives, a lot of people lost their job, people got hungry. Um, we're got political uh, problems nationally with both parties fighting all the time. Our country's kind of a mess, and then we've got racial issues that I thought would be through in the '60s, and here we are still talking about the color of people's skin, which is absolutely ridiculous unless it's in a positive way. And we're talking about kids getting shot in your schools, in church, in a movie theater, at when you're going to a grocery store. So we've got a lot of things that create mental health issues for kids, and we're needed more than ever before. So be really, really careful what you say to your players, because they're going to listen now. They're needing guidance and they need help, and you're the ones to step up and do that. And then in our crazy sport right now with the transfer portal, some of you all got the same problems with yours. But the COVID year, it took away a lot of scholarship opportunities for your kids. And I know it's more challenging because your parents don't understand that when they're talking about, why isn't my kid getting a scholarship when this one 3 years ago did and he was better. So hopefully the COVID year will run its course here in a year or two, and we can get back to getting more high school kids. And the other thing is the transfer portal. A lot of people are saying, I want an older guy instead of a younger guy, and I'm afraid that it's putting us in a position where we've all got less patience. Where if the guy's not ready to play, why not go get another one? So we've all, and then NIL is just crazy. I mean, kids asking for money and wanting to be paid, and so coaching in general, you, us, everybody. I feel like it's more important right now than it's ever been. We've got Alex Mars on here, who played at North Carolina. He's a letterman, and he is in charge of our high school relations with us today. And we've also got Sparky Woods, who was a head coach at App State and South Carolina and VMI. And Sparky works on our staff, and he and Alex do our clinics, and they do our 7-on-7s, and Sparky works with analytics, and he works with officials as well. So we've got those guys on. So we'll get started, but I didn't want to get through the start of this today, because the most important thing is thank you for what you do. You're more important in these young people's lives than ever before, and be really careful what you say to them, because you're their mentor and you're who they're looking to. And many, even with parents being a little different now, many are going to come to you before they even go to their parents. So we have a load on our shoulders, and we've got to continue to move forward with it. Alex, if you can get us started. And today, when you start looking at who we are, next, Alex, this is my office. And the truth is, we're all in the education business during the week, and we're supposed to create entertainment for our fans, our boosters, our families, and produce revenue on the weekends. And that's just who it is. We made $121 million or $122 million last year, and that has to take care of our 28 sports that we have at Carolina. And if we don't continue to make money, then they've got to get rid of me and get somebody else in there that's going to fill those seats. So that's really, really important. And we're constantly selling. You're selling parents, and you're selling your community, and you're selling everybody on what you're doing in your program to be different and be exciting and help kids, and what makes you the cool place to be, and why do kids want to play in your program. And all of those things are things that it takes years to build up, and it can take minutes to break down. So we have to continue to sell. Next. I've always thought prominent people in our background that have quotes and sayings were really prominent, and it's always interesting to me that some of these live for a long lifetime. You start looking at Dwight Eisenhower. Leadership's the ability to get person to do what you want him to do, when you want it done, in a way that you want it done because he wants to do it. And so many times, if you can get your staff, if you can get your players to feel like that they thought of this, but it's what you wanted to do, it just works better because everybody's bought in. And that's why I ask everybody in the room. We have 32 people in our staff meeting. I want to know everybody's opinion that's got one, as long as they've thought about it and as long as they've researched it and aren't just throwing out a quick opinion without any thought. Because if they're all in with a decision, it makes it a whole lot easier when we leave. Dr. King, I can't imagine his life back when race was like it was, with him being such a dominant leader. The ultimate measure of a man's not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. And the truth is, let's go to the next one. It's like President Kennedy, leadership is poised under pressure. They don't need you when things are good. The year we won the national championship, I probably did less as a coach than anything. I stayed out of the way and said, good job, because we had great players. We had a great team, and everything was in place. And it was a player-led team, so it was exactly what you wanted. But when we get here and you won 2 games the year before, there was pressure. There were things that needed to change. There was a culture that needed to change. There were a lot of things that had to change, and that was poised under pressure, and that's where leadership really kicks in. And then the last one here is Joe Namath. Pressure is something you feel when you don't know what you're doing. I asked him after a golf tournament once, what's the most pressure you've ever felt in sports? I thought he would say when the Jets were playing the Baltimore Colts and they were a 21-point underdog in the Super Bowl, the first time the 2 leagues had played at that time. And he said, Coach, it was yesterday at the Colonial Golf Tournament. I was standing out there in front of 10,000 people, and I was getting ready to tee off, and I knew I was going to hit somebody. I didn't know if it was going to be on the right side of the fairway or the left, but I knew I was going to hit somebody because I had not swung that golf club enough to know where that ball was going to go. And he said, in football, I know what to do. So pressure is only when you don't know what to do. If we're prepared in our business, we may be anxious about the game, but we're not going to feel pressure. Next. How do we build a foundation? All of us have a family. Some families are better than others, but we were all raised by somebody. It might be a guardian. It might be the grandfather, grandmother. It might be your regular parents or just a mother. But we all have a family atmosphere. So we want to continue to build our program on a family atmosphere. You got to learn to communicate first, then you build up trust and respect, and then you have a common purpose. And we'll talk about all of those here in a minute. And if you see the email at the top right, Alex can get you this email at the end. And don't worry about taking notes. If you want this stuff when we get through, Alex can send it to you. So we'll send anything you want. So just let us know, because you're very, very important to us. Regardless of whether you have a prospect or send us one or not, coaches are important to us. And I was raised by a high school football coach as my granddad. That was the love of my life. So I appreciate what you do more than you can imagine. Okay, next. Communication. My granddad taught me that the first 60 seconds you meet somebody, they're going to have a 60% impression of who you are. That's going to be their opinion. So I asked him, that's important in interviews. That's important in recruiting. That's important in dating, getting married. So what do you do? He said, number one, always be dressed neat and smile. People are attracted to happy people. And it takes 75 muscles to smile, 114 to frown. So how hard is it to be nice? Just be nice. And you don't have to have a lot of money to buy clothes, but they need to be clean and neat. Secondly, he always said people love their names. So know their names, work at their names. If you're sitting there, when you meet somebody, ask them their name, repeat their name, repeat it 2 or 3 times. Even if you repeat it and it's the wrong name, they'll correct it and you'll have the right name. So that's really important. And then I was able to meet 4 presidents in a row, from President Clinton to young President Bush, and then President Obama and the older President Bush. And the thing that I noticed about them is when they were talking to you, they gave you their full attention. So when you're walking into a room, which you do often, number one, when you walk in, everybody needs to stop and look, because that's who you are. You're the guy. And then when you're talking to somebody, don't be looking for your next conversation. Have eye contact with them and focus on them. Ask them about them. Talk to them about who they are and what they're doing, and see if they have any questions until you go to your next conversation. And that's really, really important. Show passion, show confidence, not arrogance, because you've got the energy that you want to talk to them. You're not just flat while you're standing there. It's important to them. And also repeat their names when they leave too, and say, let's follow up if there's something to do. And Coach Royal taught me when I was at Texas, it's the province of knowledge to speak, and it's the privilege of wisdom to listen. So listen, truly learn to listen and see what people think, and get their ideas, because that's really, really important as we move forward. And the other thing, I talked to Terry Donahue when he retired at UCLA, and he was a great friend of mine. We lost him this year. And I asked Terry, if you had to do over after 20 years, what would you do different? And he said, I fired 4 guys in my 20 years, and all 4 of them asked me when they came in my office, why'd you fire me? So I try really hard now to be very direct and say, here are the things that I like that you're doing. Here are the concerns I have that need to be fixed, and I want them fixed quickly. And then I'll go back a second time, and if it's the third time and they're still not doing it, then it's my responsibility for the loyalty to the group, not the loyalty to that person, to make a change. And then I remember talking to Red McCombs, who we just lost. Red was a billionaire from Texas, and he owned the Minnesota Vikings. And he said the first day he walked into the Vikings office, and you're his team that he's sitting there with, that his staff members really, his team of staff members. And the first thing he said was, we want to sell out every preseason game with the Vikings. And his general manager raised his hand, stood up, and he said, Red, with all due respect, you can't do that in the NFL. And Red said, you're fired. Get out. You're gone. He said, no, you don't understand, Red. And he said, no, you don't understand. We're going to sell out every preseason game. You don't think we can, so you're out. And he fired him. So he came back and said to the group, now let's start over. We're going to sell out every preseason game. And they were all nodding their heads. Absolutely, man. That's what we do around here. So you got to be very, very clear with what you do and the mission that you want. And then you've got to make sure that the people that you're talking to understand, because a lot of times, and guys, this is really important, a lot of times it's not what we say, it's what the person we're talking to hears. And sometimes maybe we're not very clear, maybe they don't understand. So I've gotten to a point, I always ask them, repeat what I said to you. What did you hear? Because that's a lot more important than what I said. And sometimes it's not even close to the same. It's just absolutely amazing to me that it can be that much different. But we've got to make sure what they hear is more important than what we say, and then we can clean it up. Next. Then you've got trust and respect, and those are easy words to say and hard words to do. But until we learn to communicate, we can't build the trust. Trust is about honesty and integrity and always doing what you know is the right thing to do. And when you tell somebody something, the only way you can build up trust is do it. So we came in, our players' lounge was bad. I talked to the athletics people, the director and the senior associate athletic director, and said, we need this fixed. And they said, okay. And we went to the players and we said, right, why don't you come to the players' lounge? They said, it's old and it's antiquated. We don't like anything in there. I said, okay, here's a pad and pencil. Write down what you want. You write down what you want, we're going to put it in there. But then you better be in there. You better start building your chemistry with your teammates in there, and you better keep it clean. And then I went to the athletic director, and they said, well, I'm not sure we can do it right now. And I said, no, then I'm a liar. I lose all credibility with my team. So when you tell me we're going to do something, and I tell the team, we have no choice. It's a deal breaker, because we have to make sure that we do what we tell them we're going to do. Then you build up trust, and trust grows to respect. And Coach Royal always said the mark of a man's how he treats people when they can't do anything for him. And then you are respected when you treat everybody that way. And that's your janitors, your trainers, your managers, your walk-ons, your third team players, because morale starts at the bottom. And if you've got a first team player and he thinks you're treating the third team players poorly, and then he gets hurt, or you're treating the hurt players poorly, then he knows that's the way that he's going to be treated. So we have a little motto: always treat your players like you would want your sons and daughters to be treated. And that's what we tell our coaches daily. We don't grab them, we don't cuss them. We pick them up, we're demanding with them, but we're not going to grab and cuss. I don't know. I don't want to be grabbed and cussed, and I don't know how somebody that's beaten down and needing to pick things up. I don't know how he benefits from getting cussed and beaten down. That's just not who we are. And then next, our common purpose is something I got from going to Iraq with our military. I was able to spend 10 days on the front lines, and I talked to General Odenero, and I said, how do you get these guys to stay over here? They're average 19 years old. They're average making $24,000 a year, and they're getting shot at. And they've got families at home. So how do you get them to stay? And he said, we have a common purpose. Our common purpose is to make America safe for our families. Our common purpose is to take care of the person on the right and the person on the left. And that's who we are. So I said, we need a common purpose. So when we got back home, here's our common purpose. College football is not very much fun for some right now. There's too much pressure. Coaches making too much money, and people are running kids off, and portal and NIL is crazy. So I want us to have more fun as a staff and as players than anybody in college football. Secondly, I want every player that comes to graduate. With NIL, we're talking less about academics and graduation than ever before. I don't want us to lose that. It's really important, and I want us to stay with that thought. Thirdly, I want us to win every game. We won 9 last year. That's good. We won the Coastal Division. That's good. It's not great. We didn't come back to win 9 games. So it's really, really important to me that we win all the games. And that's our purpose every year. When people ask you, how many can you win next year? I'm going to say 14, because that's what they're going to think and want anyway. So that's who we are, and that's very important. And then lastly, our job, your job, my job, is to help prepare these guys for life after football. So that's your goals. Have fun, graduate, win all the games, be better prepared for life when you get out. Your dream can be have a great family. Your dream can be in the NFL. Your dream can be run your own business when you get through, but you've got to go through the journey. So many kids now want to skip the journey and go immediately to the dream, and that's not the way life works. So you get your goals, and then we'll talk about your dreams, but we can't talk about your dreams till you get through. And that's very important as we go through it. Next, how do you make decisions? You research your situation thoroughly, then you make your decision. Once the decision's made, then you don't look back, because at the time you made the decision, it was the right decision. Maybe you didn't follow up as a staff. Maybe you didn't follow up as a group and do the things you should have done to make it work. But if you'll if you'll make a good decision, or even an average or poor decision, and everybody's on the same board, on the same page, there's still a good chance it'll work, because everybody's on board. And that's important. So when people ask me, when we had to go for 2 to beat Clemson, should I have kicked the extra point? No. We had 5 defensive players down in our first year back at Carolina. And should we have run a different play? Probably. Should we have executed the one we ran better? Absolutely. But we should have gone for 2. And 2 years later, people will say, well, I'm not sure. Well, yeah, you weren't there. You didn't research it, and you didn't have the information. So I never, ever second guess anything I do, because we researched it. We took time. I asked a lot of questions about it, and we thought about it. And at the time we made that decision, it was the right decision. Maybe we didn't follow up right. Maybe we didn't do the things we should have done afterwards, because ordinary people working together can do amazing things. So don't second guess yourself. Have a process to make your decisions right and then move forward. Next. How do we win? We set goals daily. We set goals daily, and we create an edge daily, and that's so important. The second thing we do is after the day we evaluate, did we get the goals that we set accomplished? And then we have accomplished for the day, for the week, for the first half of spring, for the spring practice, for the spring game. And then you reset your goals after the spring game for what do you need in the next month? And then what about summer workouts? What do we have to get done before we start preseason? And then what goals do we have to make better or even get if we didn't get them done in spring before we can start the fall? The second thing is having your players learn how to have success. Vince Young was a great quarterback for us at Texas. He won the national championship. At one time, he was playing awful. We got beat by Oklahoma 12-0, and we didn't score. And he was a redshirt freshman quarterback, and he was really struggling. So he comes back the next week, and we're playing at home, which you never want to play at home in Austin after you lose to Oklahoma on the road because they're still mad at you. But we're playing Missouri. They're leading the league in defense, and Vince completes 9 passes in the first half, 5 to us and 4 to them. So I had to bench him. I sat him on the bench and said, we can't keep doing this. He threw his helmet. He acted like a baby. And I said, no, I benched a guy that was leading the nation in passing efficiency to put you in because you could run better. And we weren't pass protecting very well. So he supported you. You got to support him. So he did that. We win the game, I think, 28-27. So the next day, I bring Vince in, and he's obviously really struggling. And I said, here's your high school video. Here's who I signed. Look at the plays this guy's making. I don't know what happened to him. That's the guy I need. And then I took great plays he'd made at Texas, and I said, here's a guy that was playing great, but then he let his family get in his ear. Then he let the reporters and fans get in his ear. And you don't throw like Peyton Manning. Your throwing motion's not as good. So here we are now. You can't complete a pass because you're worried too much about what's going on in your mind. So what we've got to do is get you back on track. I got to get this guy back, the guy I wanted. I got to get him back. And that's the guy I had in high school. And I told him, we play Texas Tech the next week. They were rated 10th in the country. We play in Lubbock. It's a hard place to play. They had the week off. They just beat Nebraska 70-10. It was going to be a really hard game. And I said, Vince, I'm going to start you in the game, but if you're not playing well, I'm going to pull you out, man. I can't let you play if you're not playing right. It's not fair to the team, not fair to Chance Mack, who I benched in your favor. So he didn't have a good week's practice. We're in pregame at Lubbock, and he's bouncing the ball, and he's not completing them. And I'm looking at Greg Davis, our offensive coordinator, and I said, you know what? I think we're going to have to bench him. We'll let him start, but I don't know that he can get this done. Well, he completed 11 of 15 passes for 250 yards. He ran for 250 yards, and we won the game 52-17. He never lost another game. He ended up 30-2. After that and won a national championship. And all it took was him going back and getting away from all the negative thoughts that people had and him going back to who he was. He just needed to play. And I told him the only stat that anybody's going to remember about a quarterback is his record. Nobody's going to remember how many passes you threw because they're all trying to turn him into a passing quarterback. He wasn't a passing quarterback. He was a dual threat quarterback, and he was really good, but that wasn't who he was. So that was what got him in trouble, that was really part of the reason that we won all the games. It would have been really easy to bench him and run him off, and that's why when they're down, you got to pick them up without question. The other part is body language. Boy, they're always looking at you. Your assistants are looking at you. The fans are looking at you. The players are looking at you because you've got more information than anybody else. And when you're standing there and something happens, if it's bad, I'm usually picking people up and being positive because they need to know that I think we've still got a chance to win. If it's good, I'm on their butt, man. I'm getting after them, because then they have an opportunity to get complacent, and that's just going to get you beat. And when that momentum turns, it's so hard to turn it back. So be on them when you're winning, pick them up when you're losing, and that's important. But make sure that they watch your body language and that it's very positive every minute of every day. Next, creating an edge. This is very important for every game and every day. We're playing Ohio State in the 2008 Fiesta Bowl. And Texas and Ohio State should be a great game, but we had just beaten Oklahoma in about the sixth game of the season. They were number 1 in the country. We were 5. And then we lost in Lubbock to Texas Tech with 3 seconds left. And we were number 1 in the country. And then Oklahoma edged us out just by a little bit in the poll that gave them a chance to play in the conference championship. So by losing at Lubbock, we lost a conference championship, and we were going to play Florida for the national championship. And Oklahoma did both. And we were playing Missouri in the conference championship if we'd won, and we'd already killed Missouri. And probably it cost Colt McCoy a Heisman Trophy. It cost us a conference and a possible national championship. So all of those things got us when we were down. All we could talk about is how screwed up the system was, and the tiebreaker is not fair, and all this. So Al Groh was the head coach at Virginia at that time. They weren't going to a bowl game. Al called and said, "Can I come to your practice, your bowl practice?" And I said, "I'd love for you to come. Get a pencil and paper, write down what you see, spend a week with us, because I always like experienced eyes on our practice, and I always love that advice." So Al comes out and he says, "I love your team. You guys do a great job coaching. I can tell that you've recruited well. All your outside linebackers look a lot alike. All your receivers look a lot alike. You obviously have a profile of a person that you're trying to get. So you've recruited more like pro teams do in the draft." But he says, "You got one problem. You're still talking about the Oklahoma game. You're still talking about the Texas Tech game. You don't even mention Ohio State, and you're going to get beat because you haven't created an edge. You haven't created an edge at all." And he was so right. So I went immediately to the team, immediately to the coaches, and started talking about Ohio State. How many Heisman Trophy winners they've had. What a great program they have. What an unbelievable game this is going to be with Texas and Ohio State. And we had already played them 2 times 3 years before. We played them in Columbus. It was a great game. We played them in Austin. It was a great game. So why were we sitting around pouting over something that had already happened instead of creating an edge for one of the greatest bowl games in the country that year? Well, it came down to where we won on a slant pass with 16 seconds left to go in the game. If Al Groh had not come to our practice, if he had not talked to us about creating an edge at that time, we would have lost the game. And that was very, very, very important lesson for me and all of us. Same thing happened when we were the number 2 team in the country, and we just beaten Kansas 66 to 14, and we're getting ready to go to A&M, and A&M's 4-7. I played for Bill Parcells at Florida State. He was the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, and he called me and said, "Hey, you're in trouble, man." I said, "Coach, we're undefeated. We just beat Kansas 66 to 14 and had to pull them off. Why do you think we're in trouble?" He said, "Because of what you just said. You're sitting around talking about how cool you are and how good you are. You're like a bunch of fat rats eating poison cheese." And he held up a little a piece of cheese. And he said, "This is A&M's bowl game. All you're talking about is the conference championship game in 2 weeks with Colorado and the national championship game with number 1 USC. You are sitting in a perfect position to get beat." So I ran downstairs. I put little pieces of cheese on every locker with his quote. And at halftime in College Station, we were down 29-24. And I couldn't believe it. I mean, I could not believe it. We had played awful. And it's exactly what he said. So at halftime, I go in and said, you know what? Coach Parcells was right. We ate some poison cheese. Thank God we didn't eat enough to kill us. So we're still going to win the game, but we ate enough that it hurt us. Well, we came back and won the game 40-29. And went on to beat Colorado 70-3 in the conference championship game, and then go beat USC 41-38 in the national championship game. But we could have lost it all by simply not being ready to play, not creating an edge every day for practice, not creating an edge for A&M, our rival game, one of our rival games, big game, because they weren't any good. And it put us in a very, very difficult position. So that hurt us and hurt us a lot. The other thing we do is we talk to our kids every day. When I was in TV for 5 years, I saw so many teams not play hard. And that's the worst thing we can have as coaches, is that they represent us. They're pieces of us. So if they didn't play hard, we didn't coach hard. If we didn't get them prepared, we weren't prepared. So we're working so hard we're good with 9 wins. We're working so hard to be great because we want to win all the games. So what does that take? That takes a different approach every day. You got to have that edge, create that edge, and be ready to go every minute of every day, every meeting. If you or your coaches are walking in a meeting and you're not prepared, those kids feel it. If you're not organized, if you don't have energy, those kids feel it. If you're out on the practice field, and we've all done this some, and you're yawning and you feel a little tired, and it's not, may get somebody hurt, but you're sure not going to get better, you're going to get worse. Because one of those two things happens every day. So create your edge and make sure that you do that as a coach, and that your assistant coaches buy in. And then it goes down to not only the assistant coaches, but the equipment manager and the training staff and whoever's giving water to the kids. Everybody's got to buy in, and they've got to buy in for sure. We also dedicate a game every year to the military, and we have our guys call someone that they love, they know, that's been in the military, that's in the military, and tell them that everything they do this week is for them. That's important to us. And we also have a cancer appreciation game. And the kids call someone who's got cancer, or maybe a family that's lost someone, and they dedicate everything they do that week to them. And that's very, very important at all. The last thing I want to talk to you about, and then I'll answer some questions, is halftime talks. I'm the offensive coordinator at Oklahoma, and we're playing Kansas. It's on the road. We're the #1 team in the country, and Kansas is awful. So we go, it's a rainstorm, there's a delay. We've lost our first and second quarterback. There's a true freshman named Troy Aikman that I'm coaching as a freshman quarterback. And Troy's sitting there, and he's nervous, and we've got to play him. We don't have anybody else. And it's the 7th game of the year, and we've got a good team, but we got a young quarterback. So the score at halftime is Kansas 10 and University of Oklahoma 7. So I walk in at halftime, and I absolutely throw a chair on metal lockers and scream at these kids and said, "You're playing awful. You got a freshman quarterback, and you're going to get beat. The way you're playing, you're going to get beat, man. I'm telling you, you're not doing what you're supposed to do. You didn't come prepared. You're flat. This is awful. You better pick it up." So I walked out. Well, we got beat 33-14. It was awful. We dropped a punt, and they picked it up and ran it back for a touchdown. They ran a kickoff back for a touchdown. They intercepted a pass of Troy's and ran it back for a touchdown. It was absolutely awful. So I'm on the plane with Coach Switzer, and you should never sit next to the head coach when you're #1 in the country and get beat by a bad team. But he came to sit next to me, and I said, "Coach, I'm sorry, man. We just blew it offensively." And he said, usually you lose your first team quarterback, it's hard. You lose your second team quarterback, it's nearly impossible. But let me help you with something. Those kids have great respect for you, and they believe everything you say, and you told them at halftime they were going to get beat. and you convinced them they were going to get beat, and they did. And I felt about this tall. I felt awful. So I said, I got it. So the next week we're playing Kansas State. Kansas State's not any good. We're not playing good. We're 7-3 at halftime. Coach Switzer grabs me leaving the field and says, hey, we're in great shape, right? Go pick them up, man. We're going to kill these guys because the longer the game goes, the best team wins, and we're the best team. So I did that. We came back, and we beat them 43-7 and just absolutely killed them. So 10 years later, I'm at Texas. We're playing Oklahoma State. We're at home in Austin, and we're down. We score with 4 seconds left in the half to make it 34-14 or 35-14. We're behind. We're getting killed, and that's not good in Austin, Texas. And they're booing us, and things are bad. I'm walking in the locker room, and I've got Coach Switzer on my shoulder, and I remember him saying, when they're down, pick them up, man. So I go into the coaches, and I said, hey, we played hard the first half. We didn't play good, but Oklahoma State, they had every break in the world. They're so lucky. We're going to be fine. We're going to win the game. It's going to be the biggest comeback in the history of Texas football. It's going to be so much fun. So go tell your kids how we're going to do this, how we're going to win the second half. Well, they all looked at me like I was nuts. And then I walked back into the kids the second half, and right before we go out on the field, I said, okay, guys, at Oklahoma State got so lucky that first half. They're playing good, but we're the better team. We played hard. We didn't play good. We're going to win the game. And I put up on the grease board 42-35. I said, that's going to be the final score. Well, I'm walking back out on the field, and the young sideline reporter, young lady, came over and said, Coach, man, this is bad. What do you think? I said, it's going to be the biggest upset, biggest comeback in the history of Texas football. We're going to win the game. And she thought, God, you're crazy. And I could hear her telling her guys upstairs, you won't believe what he said. So we come back, we win the game 56-35. I come in after the game and tell the kids, sorry, I underestimated you because you played much better than I thought you would. So the point being, when they're down, pick them up. Have great body language and show hope. Because if they scored 35 the first half, you can score 35 the second half. When they're going well, put your thumb on them. Keep your foot on the gas. Keep pushing them. Let them know this thing isn't over till it's over. There's too many comebacks out there. Don't make them scared, but pick them up. Pick them up when they're down, and that's important. Guys, if I could answer any questions for you, just let me know. We're an open door policy, so anytime any of you want to come and bring your staff, anything we've got is yours. It's about coaches. I've had my granddad was the winningest high school football coach in Middle Tennessee history, and the stadium's named after him. My dad was a high school football coach, and he lost all the games, so they made him the principal. That's usually what happens, I think, when somebody can't win. And then he bitched at me all the time about us losing. I wanted to say so bad, and I was afraid to do it. Dad, what was your record? Come on, man. But I was afraid to do that. I just kept my mouth shut and let it go. But I know you got Sparky that's coming on, I think. So, guys, again, thank you for what you do. I appreciate you giving me a few minutes of your time this morning, and hope that there's some little something out of the last 45 minutes that you can take home and help your team. God bless you. Have a great spring, and good luck next fall.